what? I've played worse. This at least qualifies as a game. But the problem was,
this was an enjoyable
it needed to be a
look back to see
masterpiece because it was
how
a
the
Sonic the
franchise
Hedgehog game.
That's what it
Not
looks
just
like. Now, I
any
give them
Sonic
credit.
game,
It looks
but
very,
the Sonic
very
games
much
were new
aesthetically
consoles.
pleasing. If you just look at it, it's
really bad. I saw it yesterday.
There's one thing that they can do
You
well.
know what? I couldn't come home.
There are a lot of review shows, and yet none of them change the fact you have to form your own opinions. So until you do, here are mine. The original Blade Runner is the go-to world for sci-fi noir. If people are going to talk about a movie with a futuristic world inside of a retrofitted apocalypse, then they're probably going to bring up Blade Runner. And with good reason. The film is an utter classic. It is slow, plodding, methodical. Everything in it is deliberate. Everything is there for a reason. Every shot, every camera angle, every character, every bit of dialogue. And if you're able to engross yourself in it, it is very, very rewarding. And I think that that spirit translates very well to Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner 2049 was very, very well done in terms of engrossing and encapsulating the audience. The visual effects are stunning, flawless, second to none with anything that I have seen in recent years. The world designs and building and landscaping and certain types of shots and camera angles really put you into this world and give you more of a walking tour of where Ryan Gosling and co. inhabit, as opposed to just, here is a fictional place, here is a fictional setting, here is where these characters do these things. And this is fantastic. The movie has a great strong suit in the visual effects department. And while it really hypes you up with all of this, you know, these set pieces, these things that you can play with, these characters to interact with, it really, really grabs a hold of you and shows you, here's what we're working with, here's everything that we've got. The problem with Blade Runner 2049, though, is that I think it doesn't keep up that momentum very well. I think the first third of the movie is good. The middle third is amazing. But the last third is very lacking. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers in talking about this, but what I will say is, although Harrison Ford is all over promotional material and in every trailer and given a lot of focus, he's not actually in the movie all that much. He does play a critical role to the plot, but he's barely a main character, actually. And this part is, in fact, going to dive into a bit of spoilers, and I'll give you a time code to skip over if you don't want to hear them. But the last scene of the movie, taking place inside of a sinking car, has Harrison Ford chained to the seat of the car and unable to do anything, and it feels incredibly anticlimactic. Now, I understand that part of the motifs of Blade Runner are small stories happening in a much larger universe, and things having an almost idea of inconsequential resolution because of all these big, oversweeping things happening around the characters. But Harrison Ford gets a bunch of top billing and love and is brought back from the original movie only to spend 90% of his screen time sitting in a chair in a car and not much else. Now, that is to say, that happens after what may be one of my favorite directed action movie sequences in recent years. There is a scene with a nightclub, and I won't say what happens, I won't let you know any details of it, but once you get to the nightclub scene, just give that your extra undivided attention. It is fantastically shot. It is brilliant. Utterly brilliant. There are other things that happen in the movie, tricks with visual effects, certain scenes that add character development, pulls, different, you know, long shots that I believe are very effective in setting a mood and a tone and giving us empathy, sympathy, all that good stuff with the main characters. The score is fantastic. The sound design and music design are very well integrated into the film. It's it's a very good, what I would call, music video. There's not a lot in entire description that happens. If you are to talk about the plot beat for beat, shot for shot, you could summarize it in a paragraph or two. But in terms of how they present it, there's a lot of sensory input, there's a lot of love and handcrafted feel to things. And most of the time that works, although I will say there are a few scenes that I believe could have been heightened and better tightened up in editing to give them either a bit more punch or have them get a better pacing of the film. The film is long. It has a very long running time. And going into it, you need to be prepared for that. This is not a date movie. This is date movie. But this is not a date movie. This is not a movie that you gather a bunch of group of ragtag friends to go scream at the screen at and dick around in the seats and fuck and shit. That is, no, don't do that here. Do this movie, sit down with your uncle, who still keeps all his old Star Trek DVDs and is ready to go at a moment's notice, and bring him along. It's not a loud bang bang shoot 'em up action film. It is technically, I guess, an action thriller, but with the emphasis on the thriller. It's a storybook that tells itself the way it wants to go on. I understand that these lingering shots are an homage to the original, and the original has a lot of plotting like that as well. I have seen the original Blade Runner probably 4 different times, but it's been long enough of a gap between me seeing this and the original that I think I could appreciate this as also its own standalone movie. And to me, the long takes, when they work, are great and really give you a sense of atmosphere, but when they don't work, they're just kind of filling space. There are certain times where you could just cut to the chase on certain things. Occasionally it was boring, occasionally it was brilliant. If I had to score this movie, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. I think that if you know what you're getting into, and know the runtime, and know what kind of film it is easy to be delighted by it, and easy to be taken in by this world. If you love the original, obviously see this. It is, I would say it definitely stands up to its predecessor. If you're a fan of sci-fi movies, watch this movie. If you're a fan of thrillers, watch this movie. If you think this movie would appeal to you, hearing like a detective sci-fi noir, any of that, grim dark apocalypse, world building, if any of that really grabs your fancy, then watch the movie. If you don't really want to engross yourself in it, probably stay away from it. And I do think that it does have flaws in the pacing and the occasional writing conflicts between what they want to get across and how they get it across in the cinematography. Basically, some things are boring where they could easily be cut out and tighten up the film, but that's for you to decide. Alright, let me know in the comments if there is another thing you want my opinion on.